Just a word before we get to the big news. If you've been a long time subscriber to the channel, you'll know this channel actually began as a very George R. R. Martin channel. Not even a Game of Thrones channel or Song of Ice and Fire channel, but a George R. R. Martin channel. But for various reasons, I had to move it away from that kind of basal point because, frankly, a little disappointment with constantly doing updates on Winds of Winter and other projects, and some of them did come to fruition, but others did not. And you can go back, the videos have not been erased. The earliest videos were announcing that Winds of Winter was going to be published maybe 2 years ago, I think, by now. And I still hold by that report because that seemed to be the best estimate. So we've had a long history here of George making updates, but this one finally seems very rock solid. So let's not hesitate. Let's get to the man himself, and he will say where he is with Winds of Winter.
Of Winter.
Dance with Dragons and Storm of Swords are the two largest books in the series. They were both about 1,500 manuscript pages. I think this one is going to be longer than that by the time I finish it, and I think I'm about 3/4 of the way done, maybe. But that's not 100% done, so I have to continue.
So apparently, according to his estimate, he is 3/4 done, and he's using the point of 1,500 manuscript pages. So I rechecked the large paperback for Dance of Dragons. I do have some copies of the book, of course, but I won't lie, I have the small paperback in some cases, so that may not be the best estimate. If I can assume that Dance is about 1,100 paperback pages, and that's coming from the manuscript pages, we have to cut off about 400 pages. Assuming he's 3/4 done and he wants to make something bigger than Dance with Dragons, let's assume a low estimate somewhere around 1,600 manuscript pages. So that means at this point, technically speaking, he probably has 1,200 pages done manuscript. When we see that in the actual printed page, that's roughly 800 pages. So he has about 400 pages to go, roughly speaking. Now, the good news is, of course, you can probably do that over one summer. Really, that wouldn't be that tough to put out. But George is a perfectionist, and as he says, he's a particularly slow writer. And we have to be brutally honest, now that he has a lot of money, he doesn't have to worry about a paycheck. He can spend as much time or as little time as he wants on the book project. But despite a lot of hateful videos denouncing him and saying he's lost interest, or the books are never coming, apparently he's made substantive progress. You wish it was more progress, as he says, but in all probability, we will be getting Winds of Winter in a couple years, and the announcement probably, from my own estimate, will come maybe a year and a half from now, and we'll at least be given some prospect of seeing the book in the near future. I think the real dilemma here is Dream of Spring, and at this point, we can only speculate that he's even begun that or even has a good idea of how the books will end. So we probably will be getting Winds of Winter. He is in poor health. We wish him well, but he's getting a little older. I don't expect he will die soon, but I'm sure he's made contingencies in case worst comes to worst. Someone will finish the books, and that'll be the end of it. But we really hope he sticks around to do Dream of Spring in the way he wanted to, and we get his vision. But it looks like there is substantive progress. 3/4 is no small number. But again, it is disappointing that it is going to be nearly 20 years and we're still not finished. But that is where we are with Winds of Winter. And in other news, which is slightly sad, is several prequel ideas that they had for other shows may not be occurring. Nymeria apparently will not be developed any further, and some of the other prequel shows will not be going forward. They're still doing Dunk and Egg, and if you like that part of the mythos, apparently they will still do that. A lot of other prequel ideas are still up in the air. As far as we know, the Jon Snow series is still occurring. Quite a few ideas are bubbling up and will be developed. Again, this is all speculation. Maybe, hopefully, they will do Nymeria. Now that House of the Dragon has been a financial and critical success, they have a lot of motivation to keep doing more within the larger world of George R. R. Martin. But it does have a double-edged sword. If House of the Dragon really did very well for them, they'll want to do something close to that mythology, and Nymeria or ET or other things may be a little too far, so they want to do more Westeros-oriented projects. I hope they stick to ET and Nymeria because Although getting more on Westeros is interesting, this is a pretty big world. There are many places they could go to. Old Valeria, Essos, there's just a lot of possibilities. Bravos, you go through the list. I don't see why we need to confine ourselves to just one location, but that's me. So hopefully they will reconsider what they're going to do with Nymeria and ET. And where we are with Winds of Winter is there is substantive progress, but still quite a long way to go. And given how slow and methodic George is, it could be a relatively short amount of time if he just gets inspired, maybe only a few years, but again, it could still be a very lengthy process before we see Winds of Winter. But we are in the closing stages of finally getting an actual, real official announcement